The top stories of the week with added depth and also context from our team of reporters we here like to call the Daily Debrief. Hello, everyone. I'm Ty Quinones. Well, viewers like you are asking for more depth, and here is exactly where you're going to find it. So let's jump right in.
Vegas is about to enter a heat wave with potentially record-breaking heat. Danny, to me, it feels like we've been breaking a ton of daily records lately. I don't know if that's normal. What's your opinion as a meteorologist?
Yeah, I feel like a broken record talking about all of the broken records, right? We had another wave of early season heat last weekend where we tied and broke records. In general, that's the pattern that we're seeing globally. We talk about that all the time, just the warming global climate. And that's something that is certainly reflected here in Southern Nevada. We did actually just get the new averages out. I believe Bruce, meteorologist Justin Bruce, did this with you a few weeks ago, talking about those new averages that just came out. And yes, across the board, we are seeing gradually warming temperatures based on those 30-year averages. It's unfortunate to see these early season record breakers, but it does seem to be something that we'll continue to see.
Something I've heard a lot lately too, which we have for most of the week next week, is excessive heat warnings. What does an excessive heat warning actually mean, and what conditions are required?
It essentially means that the kind of heat that we expect is conducive for those heat related illnesses, for heat stroke, heat exhaustion. And so there are different levels that we look at, those who are at high risk, and then the kind of extreme heat that's dangerous for everyone, regardless of if they're high risk or not. And that's the kind of heat that we're expecting next week. In terms of a temperature threshold, it depends on the time of year, because obviously in June, 110 and above is extremely hot. Maybe our bodies are a little more acclimated to 108 or so as we head toward July. So that threshold will bump up a little bit. But it essentially just means that your body is going to be at a higher risk for the heat related illness because of how intense the conditions are. And you just haven't had time to transition into those hot months.
Okay. Well, knowing that, what's the most important thing someone should consider when we enter a heat warning?
Yeah, great question. And that is just to plan ahead to take care of your bodies. Next week, specifically, if you want to get into the numbers a little bit, we expect 113, 114. Some of the models actually indicating some days could bump up a little bit higher. And that's 10 to 15 degrees above the seasonal average, even for this time of year. We expect to break records a few days next week. And these records were set back in 1940. So this is an incredible kind of early season heat wave. So you need to plan ahead to shift your outdoor activities. You don't want to do those during peak heating hours, which are generally between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. But with this kind of intense heat, I would really say from 9 a.m. to about 8 p.m. So if you have to walk the dog, if you have to go on a jog, I would do it early in the morning or late at night. You got to stay hydrated. And that doesn't mean coffee. Caffeine actually dehydrates your body. So we recommend drinking half your body weight in ounces of water, and limit your time outside. If you can't limit time outside, take lots of breaks in the shade, in the AC, and wear light colored, loose fitting clothing so that your body can try to regulate its temperature a little bit better. So take care of yourself. That's really what you got to know about next week. It's not our typical June weather where you can kind of power through the heat. You have to take it seriously because it's very extreme.
Danny, thank you so much. For even more on today's big story, make sure to visit ktnv.com. There we have additional safety tips as well as an updated forecast. Right now, you're watching KTNV streaming, Las Vegas news on your time.
Expect to see a lot of visitors from out of town coming from the Strip to watch a game over at Allegiant Stadium. However, if you move over to the west of the stadium, that's where most locals will be coming through.
I'm sure that if we're standing here 5 or 6 years from now, the landscape and what it looks like behind us will be very different.
Raiders president Mark Bedane is expecting a very different area around Allegiant Stadium in the future. Clark County commissioners approving a plan Wednesday night to create an entertainment district with bars, restaurants, and other retail. It would take up a 1.25 square mile around the stadium and west of I-15.
Hopefully we'll develop out as a wonderful place for people to come, have some dinner, have a drink before the game, and hang out a little while afterwards.
The focus? To create an area that would still attract people even when Allegiant Stadium isn't hosting an event. This would mean transforming this predominantly industrial area. Bedane says he believes new development will come.
There's going to be a lot of investment in here. When these stadiums pop up, investment usually follows, activity usually follows.
There are also plans to have public art and smaller blocks to make it easier for people to walk around. County Commissioner Michael Naft, whose district includes the stadium, is optimistic about the future development.
I could see the west of the stadium being the locals area. That's where locals will come from and spend some time.
While there's no definitive timeline for the plan, Commissioner Naft says he believes some improvements can be done as soon as possible, like adding bike lanes to the streets. Jeremy Chen, 13 Action News.
I'm Jason Denant, here with meteorologist and reporter Bree Guy, and her story today was all about Lake Mead, the water levels lowering, and how to conserve water. Can you tell us a little bit more about your story today?
Yeah, so the story that I did today was about the low Lake Mead water levels. So they are reaching historic lows. This is the lowest, it's projected to be the lowest since it's been filled in the 1930s. And that is all due to this 21-year long drought. Now, the desert, a lot of people ask, like, well, aren't we supposed to not see rain? There are dry deserts and wet deserts, which is very confusing. We naturally go through water cycles. We naturally go through dry periods in the desert and we go through wet periods in the desert, relatively speaking. And so, yes, we do need rain. We have been below average in our rainfall for 16 out of 21 of those years. And so we need a few consecutive years of great rainfall. It's not just going to be one big dump's going to solve this problem. We need that consecutive year. We need those consecutive years to kind of help stabilize that. And it really is a big factor is the Colorado, on the Rockies, snow melt on on our side of the Rockies. Snow melt is just we're not getting to those levels. And that is what fuels the water that flows into Lake Mead in those water levels. And we just haven't seen that in these last few years.
Recently, Nevada became the first state in the country to ban certain types of grass and things that non-usable grass just for decoration in the state. When you were talking to the authorities today, did they give you any other tips on what we can be doing so that we don't get any more into the problem with the water there?
Yeah, so that has a lot to do with the Southern Nevada Water Authority, and they are currently developing a plan about reducing that water usage and on grass. And so the advice that they were giving me today and that who I talked with today, every little drop counts, every little bit counts. So do not if you can try and conserve water wherever you can, you don't have to water your plants or water your grass every single day. Wherever you can just conserve a little bit of water, it's going to take all of us to make a difference. And so literally every little drop counts. And so you can do steps to conserve water supply too, and not have running just constantly, water constantly running for no reason.
I always start my day off when I brush my teeth. I turn the water on a little bit. I brush. I have the water off while I'm brushing. And then I know that I think it helps and I'm hoping that helps. But what you're saying is every drop really does count.
Literally every drop, especially here in the desert, every drop counts.
We'll be back now with more of the Daily Debrief after the break. And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we're talking about here, just head to ktnv.com.
Well, we know it is going to be a wild summer. Virgin Hotels Las Vegas kicking off the party with what they're calling unstoppable celebration. One of Las Vegas's hottest resorts ushering in a new era. 13 Action News reporter Joe Bartels is live right now at the property. And Joe, everything about this resort is really special.
Yeah, Trisha, it really is, and the Virgin brand is known around the world. This property now employing thousands of locals, and just hours ago we got a look at this property, which is now fully open.
It's always a party when Sir Richard Branson shows up. The 70-year-old business mogul on hand to reveal the recently completed Ilia Beach Club pool, a key feature of the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas.
Oh, I think we're about to start the party. I mean, I remember the parties around these pools.
The former Hard Rock property hardly looks like its old life. The pool is just one of the signature attractions.
I think the life has been breathed back into it. The team have just created so many magical moments. Wherever you go around the Virgin Hotel, you'll find magical moments.
The big reveal came after months of construction and difficulties caused by the pandemic. But even during COVID, the project created jobs.
We just got through 16 months of COVID pandemic, and early on I determined that construction workers are essential. These projects are essential to the future of our economy, to the ability of us to re-emerge from this virus.
The hotel is a collaboration with several entities, including Hilton, and the casino is operated by the Mohegan tribe, the first in what has become a trend of operating and ownership in Las Vegas.
Very significant that the San Manuel band has bought the Palms. We have had another tribal gaming organization, Mohegan Sun, operate a casino in Las Vegas, but this is the first time we've had a tribe buy a casino.
Just last month, the legendary Palms changed hands for $650 million. Branson says Las Vegas is back and better than ever and sees a bright future for the newest Virgin resorts.
Because of COVID, we've been locked away while all the hard work's been going on. And coming here, going through all the rooms, through all the magical little bits, you just couldn't wish for anything better.
And tonight, Christina Aguilera performed to kick off the Unstoppable Celebration Weekend. Reporting live, Joe Bartel's 13 Action News.
I'm Amy Abdel-Sayed. The new Virgin Hotels property in Las Vegas may have opened back in March, but it's hosting a huge party right now to celebrate. Joe, why did Virgin Hotels wait to have a huge event a little more than like 3 months after the property officially opened?
Well, great question. I was at the first one way back in March when they officially opened it to the public, and that's when people could come in and start gaming and start to enjoy the property. It was packed when I was there back in March. Parts of it still weren't ready. Namely, the pool area was still under construction then. So they opened it in March, but there was still some finishing touches that needed to happen. So today was our very first look at really an amazing resort, world-class pool in true Virgin brand style with Sir Richard Branson there, 70 years old, still as lively as ever, with a lot of excitement, and they're really kicking off this weekend. They're calling it Unstoppable Celebration, and Christina Aguilera, of fame of the 90s, was there, and she was performing there tonight. So a lot of stuff still in the process, but they're finally complete, and now officially every part of the resort is open.
The whole mantra this past week has essentially been Vegas is back. You've been on so many stories about things reopening or being really busy. How does today's story kind of tie into that bigger context?
We've really been working on a series of stories about how Las Vegas is getting back. We know that there's going to be a huge July 4th celebration. We talked about room rates are starting to tick back up, back to the pre-pandemic levels. I did a story about a small audiovisual family-owned company that rents out equipment, mics, speakers, stages, those kinds of things. They're saying the last 2 weeks have just been insanely busy with all of these shows that are starting to come back and all these kind of last minute bookings. So the signs are there, things are starting to percolate, and then you culminate with today with Virgin being one of the newest resorts. You know, we have Resorts World that's set to open here in another week and a half or so. Which is very exciting. So you're seeing all of these things, new development, new projects, the rebranding of the Hard Rock to the Virgin Hotels Las Vegas. And then the governor was on hand today, and he was saying how critically important this hotel is because it was under construction during the pandemic. It was seen as an essential project. It kept people employed, it kept workers working, and now it's created 1,600 jobs for people. It's also in a very prime spot. As you leave McCarran, after you get off a flight and you're heading towards the Strip, you're probably going to pass Harmon and Paradise, which is the corner of where this new rehab property is. So very crucial. The governor was there saying that this kind of development is crucial to get us out of the depths of the pandemic's wrath of our economy.
And if I'm not mistaken, the casino at Virgin Hotels has something that Las Vegas has never seen before. Can you let us know a little bit more about the connection to the tribal community?
Yeah, so this is really interesting and really exciting. This is the property itself is kind of a collaboration. So the hotel side of it is under the Virgin's brand. Everyone knows Virgin Atlantic, with Sir Richard Branson being the face of it. This is also a collaboration with Hilton as well. The Hilton, name obviously very prominent, and people know that as well. But the casino itself is actually operated by the Mohegan tribe. They're out of Connecticut. It's called the Mohegan Sun Casino. So they're the first tribe to operate a casino within confines of the Las Vegas Valley, which is interesting because they kind of set the stage. And then we saw the Palms sell recently to the San Manuel tribe out of Southern California. And so we're starting to see this. We've seen tribal gaming in other states, in other places, in other jurisdictions. This is really the first time that we've seen this type of both operation and now ownership with the Palms, which is interesting. And there's even talk more about potentially more development or even more future tribal nations setting up shop here in Las Vegas, which is interesting, and experts say it's a win.
Joe, thank you so much. For more on today's big story, make sure to visit ktmv.com. Right now, you're watching KTMV streaming, Las Vegas news on your time.
We'll be back now with more of the Daily Debrief after the break. And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we're talking about here, just head to ktnv.com.
A potential new law, SB 448, would change a lot about how the state generates and distributes electricity, attempting to get away from high carbon fossil fuels and go towards more reliable, renewable forms of energy. It all begins with cars. The bill directs NV Energy to direct $100 million in funding towards electric car infrastructure like charging stations all over the state. It also boosts investment in solar technology, 40% of which must go to historically underserved communities. The biggest investment comes with completing the state's power grid by building 2 massive transmission lines across the north and east sides of the state, completing a triangle. Supporters like Dan Musgrove with Nevada Building Trades says that this would allow the state to build solar farms in rural counties, tap geothermal energy in the north, and pay people to make it happen.
Jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, let's talk about getting out of a pandemic as well. And so this is important legislation. When you look at that map, those projects won't come if we can't get the electricity to the grid. And the men and women of the building trades, who are a very diverse group of men and women, would love to have the opportunity to get those projects on the ground and electricity, green energy into the grid. So
opponents of the bill included representatives of the Nevada Resort Association, who believe that the high cost of investment to build these lines and charging stations on the front end could cause their rates to go up in the long run. They were joined by environmental advocates like Bison and Range Watch, who fear large solar transmission line or geothermal projects in rural areas could threaten animal species like a wintering bald eagle population in the north. Now that the session is over and the bill has passed both chambers of the legislature, the future of energy right here in Nevada rests on Governor Sisolak's desk. Sean Delancey, 13 Action News.
We'll be back now with more of the Daily Debrief after the break. And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we're talking about here, just head to ktnv.com.
I'm Jason Dedant here with meteorologist Danny Beckstrom, and today's big story is actually the hot story, hot because of the heat. Danny, we just hit 100 degrees weather today. What is this forecast looking like for this week?
Oh, you said it, Jason. It's hot. Heat is the big weather story for the first week in June. In fact, today, our first triple-digit day of 2021, the warmest since October 1st of 2020 with that 100-degree high at McCarran. And we just heat up from here, Jason. Our temperatures tomorrow jumping another couple degrees, and the heating trend takes us closer to 105 or 106 by the middle of the week.
Wow. Now that is hot, and it's a little bit.
Yeah,
It is a little bit of a shock to the system for a lot of us, even though we may have lived
it
here for
is.
many years. Sometimes we just seem to forget how to stay hydrated, what to do when it hits these temperatures that seem crazy to a lot of people around the country. What do we do
Yeah.
here to make sure that we don't get heat stroke?
Well, I hear this a lot, especially our first occurrence of triple digit heat. Locals say, we're used to this. We know how to deal with it. But you have to keep in mind that your body hasn't quite acclimated when we hit those triple digits all at once. The average high for today's date, just in the mid 90s. So when we climb closer to 105 or 106, that's 10 degrees above the seasonal average. And in fact, on Thursday, our forecast high of 106 is just 1 degree shy of the standing high temperature record of 107. So you have to take care of your body, and you have to help your body ease into that transition of the summer like heat. So a few things to do. You got to stay hydrated, drink more water than you think your body even needs, avoid time outside, and if you can't, make sure to avoid direct sunlight. Also important to wear light colors. The darker the shade, the more it absorbs the heat, so your body has a hard time cooling itself off. So these are all things that we put in place as we head into the middle of the week. In fact, it's so warm that the National Weather Service has issued an excessive heat warning that starts Wednesday morning at 11 a.m., lasting through at this point Friday night at 9 p.m. So we are really dealing with some intense heat. I know we get 110 plus during the summer, but our bodies aren't quite there yet. So we have to just take care of them a little bit extra this week.
What are those signs and symptoms that your body may be feeling when you say, uh-oh, it's time to go inside, or it's time to go maybe to the hospital?
Yeah, the National Weather Service has a great graphic on this that we can probably post to a social media page. But dizziness, when you feel like you're going to pass out, a throbbing headache, those are all signs of heat stroke and heat related illnesses. So there's, heat exhaustion and there's heat stroke. Those are two different things. And when you're displaying signs of heat stroke, that's when you got to take it to the hospital. Heat exhaustion is when you need to take yourself inside and try to cool your body down.
Well, thank you, Danny, for giving us a deeper look in today's hot story, which is definitely the heat, and we appreciate that.
Well, thanks for watching the Daily Debrief on your streaming device. Remember, if you missed any part of this week's program, just hit the back button on your remote, then scroll down until you see KTNV Digital Exclusives. There, you're going to find this show and also all of our dedicated streaming content. And stay tuned for more from 13 Action News after the break. And of course, check us out anytime here on KTNV Streaming, Las Vegas News on your time.